Hello and welcome to Circuit Crest TV. I'm your host, Brian Jenkins, and this is Arduino tutorial number 5. Now, the last couple tutorials, we talked about the board itself and the hardware on the board. This time, we're going to talk about the IDE again and go into a bit more detail about the IDE and Arduino sketches. Now, I know some of you are excited to build your first project and write your first program, but we'll get there, don't worry. Now, if you remember correctly, IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. And that is quite a mouthful, so from now on, again in this video, we're just going to call it IDE. Programs in Arduino are called sketches. And the file extension for Arduino sketches is .ino. So, for example, the file extension for an Excel spreadsheet is .xls or .xlsx. File extension for a Word document would be .doc or .docx. So the file extension for Arduino sketches is .ino. Now, older sketches have a file extension of .pde. And these can be used in the newer version of the IDE too, in case you run across an older sketch or program. Just know that they used to be called .pde. And the transition, if you try to open a .pde in a newer version of the IDE is seamless. You won't even really know it. But anyway, when you program in Arduino, you're using a language similar to C or C++, and we'll have some tutorials about C later, though it's not 100% completely compatible with C or interchangeable. The IDE, as we can see here, is designed to make things simple. And what it does really is it changes the code we write into the ones and zeros the processor on the Arduino board can understand, since microcontrollers only speak binary. I know last time we talked about the IDE when we went over installing it, I went over this, but I think this is really, really important, and this is something I strongly suggest you do, so I'm going to go over it again. The first thing I would do is go over here to File, and then Preferences. And I would be sure this box here, Display Line Numbers. Okay, you want to be sure that's checked, because that's going to make your life easier. And you see these line numbers here, 1 through 9. That's what that means. So if I uncheck it, they go away. So I want to keep that checked. I want to see my line numbers. So I'm going to make sure that box is checked. Now, you'll notice too, when you open up your Arduino IDE, you have a name. It names the project a default name. And here we can see that name. It's just sketch underscore today's date. And then we could also see that name up here, along with the Arduino IDE version. So if I want to change the name of this, the first thing I would do is go to File, Save As, and here's a name. I can't have any spaces in the name, and you can't start with a number, but I can change this to Geek123 and save it. And here we can see it change the name in the two areas to Geek123. Now, on the bottom right, we see the Arduino board and port name. And your port name may be something different. It's just a name the computer gives the port. But it might come in handy to see that there. The bottom left, you'll notice a number. It's a number 9 here. And this just tells you what line your cursor is on. So here we can see the cursor blinking at line number 9. If I moved it to line number 1, that changes to 1, 2, 3, and so on. Now, let's talk a little bit about the main buttons. Here we have a verify button, and this just compiles the code and checks it for errors. The shortcut for this is Ctrl R on a PC, and you'll also notice here that when the IDE, the newer versions, you open it, it automatically inserts these two functions. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But to verify your sketch, and I would do this every so often to make sure you don't have any errors in your code. Before you write 100 lines of code, definitely want to do it, because if you do write 100 lines of code and find an error, or the compiler finds an error rather, it's going to be hard to find. So let's click this button. I haven't really done anything here, but just to see how this works. So we'll click it, and then down here, you can see it says compiling sketch, and it might take a few seconds. And then in that black area down there, we get some information. So, okay, that is the verify button. Now, when I'm ready to transfer the program to my Arduino board, I use this button right here. This is the upload button. And again, it will compile the sketch and then upload it to the board. Now, I don't actually have the board connected to the PC, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that because I'll probably get an error. Let's see what happens. Now you can see it says uploading. It's trying to upload it. And the shortcut for that, by the way, is Ctrl U. U for upload. That's an easy one to remember. Okay, so I lied. I wanted to try it anyway. And here you can see, just to show you guys what happens, you can see, obviously, an error occurred. So next button we have is the new button. If I want to start a new sketch, and the shortcut for this is Ctrl N. Here we have the open button. If I want to open the sketch, it's Ctrl O, the keyboard shortcut. And then here, save. This is one you're going to want to do often. Save early, save often, because if something goes wrong, your computer crashes, you don't want to lose an hour's worth of work, okay? So the shortcut for save is Ctrl S. Now, last time we talked about the board itself, and we talked about the TX and RX LEDs, which stand for transmit and receive. And when I go ahead and I upload a program, and again, I don't have the board connected, so I can't actually show you this, but when you click this and it starts to upload, you'll see those LEDs on the board blink. This is a good indicator that it is indeed communicating with the board and uploading it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to write something. Let's see. Arduino rules. Spell that right. Now, you see, I made a change. You notice this little funky looking, looks like two S's on top of each other that appeared here. What this means is I made a change. The change has not been saved. So I made a change to the program, and I haven't saved it. So when I hit save, it goes away. So that's something to look out for, something that's good to know. Now, let's talk about the text editor. This is this white area here, this whole area is the text editor. And as I mentioned earlier, when you open a blank sketch with the Arduino IDE, it automatically populates this area with these two functions, setup and loop. Okay, now these loop and setup functions are absolutely necessary to have. You can't upload and compile a sketch without them. Even if you don't use the setup function, for example, it still has to be there. Now, this is the message area, and here, I could copy the message. That could come in handy. And here we have this black area, too, which displays pertinent information. Let's go ahead and try to just verify this code here. Now, I got an error, and you'll notice here it says Arduino is not declared in this scope. That seems a little cryptic now, but we'll talk about that kind of stuff later. And then here in this black bar, we can see some information. And this does expand. I can drag this out and expand it. So the error is right here. And notice how it highlights the error. Now, I did this on purpose just to show you what happens when you get an error. It'll tell you that, okay, here's a problem. It'll highlight the line of code where the error is, and it'll tell you, usually some kind of cryptic message, but you'll get used to this after a while, what the error was. Arduino was not declared in this scope. So we'll talk about variables and scopes and things like that later, but let's go ahead and let's correct the error. And I'm just going to comment that out with the 2 forward slashes, verify again. And done, no errors. So that's what happens if you have an error. There's another feature of the IDE I want to talk about, this little button here. And this you can use. You can create a new tab, and then you name it down here. You can rename the current tab, delete tab, or go to the previous next tab. So that comes in handy too for navigating the tabs. And then here we have the serial monitor. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about this, but this lets you see the communication between the PC and the Arduino. And this is going to come in handy for certain sketches. And here I open it up. I don't have any real program running or any board connected to the PC, so you're not really going to see anything here. But you'll notice we have auto scroll, baud rate usually 9600. But I just want to make you aware of the serial monitor and what it does. One last thing I want to discuss, which is really going to come in handy. There are a lot of examples, code that's already been written to perform certain tasks that are built into this that you can use to not only help you learn, but also help you develop projects and things quicker. Reusing code is one of the basic fundamentals of programming. So let's take a look at some of these examples. To find the examples, we go to File, and then Examples. And here we see a whole bunch of built-in examples, basics. This is different programs here, digital, analog, communication. All these things are built-in examples. This is like code that other people have written that you can start on. It's like a foundation. So if I want to have a program that blinks an LED, I might come over here to basics and then open blink and then modify it to suit my own purposes. But some of the work has already been done. So this is a big time saver. It's a big learning tool and comes in handy. I suggest that you guys install the IDE if you haven't already, and then open some of these up and take a look at some of the code. Like here we have the blink, and we see a bunch of comments and some other things you may not understand yet, but eventually you will. So that's it for now. Next time, we'll go over connecting the Arduino to the PC. Because if you're new to this and you haven't done that before, there are a couple gotchas that could trip you up. It's not terribly difficult, but it's something we should go over. And this is usually easy, like I said, but it can be slightly confusing if you're new. So until then, go ahead, open up some example sketches, play around, and see what you can do. If you're interested in Arduino and microcontrollers, you'll love how to get started with Arduino in 1 day or less. Get instant access now by clicking the link below in the description.